Welcome to another edition of What Barrie's Talking About from Barrie 360. I'm Dan Blakely, back after taking a breather last week. On this week's program, the battle over a proposed sports field on the Barrie Waterfront moves into new territory. Special needs kids in the Aurelia area have a hockey league they can call their own. The Barrie Food Bank has been around for 40 years. We look back at how it started, where it's been, and where it's going. Brookstone Academy in Craighurst is offering an alternative education experience. We'll explore that. And the Barrie Library's Dragon Boat Festival returns this month. We get the conversation started after this. Been a quiet few weeks in the debate over a sports field on the waterfront near the Military Heritage Park. There's been lots going on behind the scenes on both sides of the debate. We've heard from the mayor on the matter. This week we hear from Cathy Colbatch, co-chair of the Allandale Neighbourhood Association, and Minet's Point resident Michele Newton. They're with Barrie 360's Ian MacLennan.
Why, Cathy, is there opposition to this project?
I think that there is opposition for a couple of reasons. Number one, there was the waterfront strategic plan that was done. Many of the people who have signed the online petition and the hard copy petitions participated in that and were engaged. And at no time was there any discussion about doing something such as this with the sports field on the waterfront. So I think that shook a lot of people. Secondly, no one knew about it. And I know that, I certainly, and Mayor Nuttall and council all know me very well. I speak quite frequently and I look at the agenda quite frequently. And I think what was happening was it wasn't really out there in a way that people understood. So we looked at, went back and looked at the documentation and the staff report and went backwards. And it was very, hard to understand when you looked at what it said on this development report. So it talked about the Sea Cadets relocating, but it didn't say Sea Cadets relocating and parade ground and multi-use sports field. So, certainly for me, when I was looking at documentation, I would look at that as an agenda item and go, oh yeah, they're relocating, that's good. They need to be in a safe place along the waterfront and have accessibility to the waterfront for boating and so on. So, I think those are some of the reasons why people just really feel that, it wasn't out there in the public realm in a way that it might normally be.
And the other aspect of it, of course, is just concern over losing such a beautiful environmental area, the natural habitat along the lakeshore. Barrie's green space is limited, and that is just one of the jewels, to be able to have this beautiful meadow with trees around and so many species of wildlife living there, that it's a habitat that it is an active habitat, and people don't want to see that lost to a sports field.
Now, that the location, though, has been shifted somewhat, but the city has indicated that, or the staff have, that it's zoned, which would allow for a sports field. They've talked about planting trees over 10 years. Yes. How much is actually going to be lost?
Well, that's...
Is it complete clear cutting or...
No, it wouldn't be complete clear cutting from what I understand, but we haven't had dialogue with the city. What's been happening and from the original, what was originally proposed, they have shrunk the field and they have reorientated it. So I think, maybe trying to appease people. We don't know what the final outcome is going to be. And that's the other thing. We don't know what the final outcome is going to be because it's a work in progress at this point.
And the other piece to add to that is it's not just about the trees. Mm-hmm. Trees are one piece of the ecosystem. When birds are living in trees, they're feeding off of the grasses. They're finding bugs in there. They're finding things in there. Hawks are finding mice and voles and rodents living in the grassland. So an ecosystem isn't just about trees. It's about that whole space.
Whether it's four-legged or butterflies or what have you, I guess. Fast forward, Marshall Green, retired lawyer, well-respected in the community, has been brought on by the city as a volunteer to explore the sports field. Why do you think he was brought into the picture?
I think you would have to probably ask the city why they would coin it being brought in. There has been a connection with Marshall Green through one of the
Well, the mayor said
citizens.
some things have changed in terms of wants and needs. Didn't specify whether it's sports groups or what have you.
Well, I would say that the Friends of Allandale Station Park is a very large group of individuals, and then there is sort of a lead group of about 10 people, and one of them is acquainted and knows Marshall Green quite well. So there were conversations at the very beginning of this process about what was proposed for Allandale Station Park. And that was the beginning of the conversations that Marshall had with Friends of Allandale Station Park to talk about it. So in terms of the other pieces, it would probably be good to speak to those other parties about that. But from the perspective of this coalition of residents, of concerned citizens from across Barrie, being able to share our concerns with Marshall has been wonderful, and being able to assist with some of the research that he's doing in terms of alternate locations, pulling maps from the Simcoe County GIS system and looking at those locations has been something that we've been able to support.
Are you aware of Marshall mandate is to explore other areas within the city for a sports field?
I'm not completely sure what the mandate is. Certainly our conversations have been a lot around sports fields are great. Can we find a different location? And that's really been the focus of our work as a coalition of community citizens. And that's where we've been able to help Marshall with the research into that. So perhaps that's the answer.
The sports field then, Cathy, it's a no-go. It can't happen? Or does it have to be something other than a synthetic turf? I mean, there's no wiggle room here?
I would say no. And, partly as well, back in 2021, I was part of a group, and you'll remember Al MacLennan was chairing the group, talking about naturalizing that area in a way that that we could, maybe enhance what's there today. And, that was approved in principle by the council of the day. And we were very happy with that. And there's even signage up currently that says this is a wildflower area, et cetera. So, that's really important to the people. And I actually sat on that committee with Al MacLennan, Vanessa Kennedy, who at the time was with the Barrie Native Friendship Centre, Mona Boyd, who is City of Barrie. And, we were trying to figure out the best way to keep that property as it is. And part of that was discussed when they did the waterfront strategic plan, which is the other thing, because we talked specifically about keeping that part of the waterfront in its natural state, in the natural environment, because there are the red oak savanna, the red oak trees that are there, and they wouldn't be impacted directly. But that's all a part of it, right from the shoreline right on up to the lakeshore, really that whole piece of property. So we would like to see, and many people, thousands of people have said they would like to see that left natural.
Have you asked the city what other properties were explored before they made a decision to locate the sports field where they did? Do you know of any other locations they scouted? Because quite often there's exploratory work. Does this different properties?
I would answer to that it doesn't seem, from a perspective of a regular resident looking at this approval process, it didn't look like any other locations were on any of the staff
Did anybody
reports.
ask the city directly if they've explored other opportunities while
By
they were doing
emails
this?
and calls, and I wouldn't know what all the answers have been. It seems to me the same. The staff report had one location. That was the location that was explored.
Anywhere but the waterfront. That's basically the message from you folks?
I wouldn't be as clear-cut as that. I think
Okay.
it is not the waterfront, but a location that provides solutions for all the parties that are involved. And that means not cutting down a bunch of trees in a different place. It means having adequate facilities and parking and amenities that are needed by anyone using that field. Those are the things that all of the participants want, and the waterfront location doesn't offer most of those things.
So where do you go from here, Michele? You talk with Marshall as a group and as a community, I would imagine. Do you want to sit down, or have you sat down with user groups or the Sea Cadets? The city? Would you like to be brought together and let's hack this out?
I think we're always open to collaborations. Thus, the idea of it's Friends of Allandale Station Park can include anybody. So that door is always open. In terms of, I think, what we'd like to continue doing as our coalition of concerned residents is still raising awareness of this throughout Barrie. We have the summer. Our plan was to knock on every home in the summer. We have a league of volunteers, but we are always looking for more because they've been doing the door knocking, handing out an information flyer that talks about this proposed field. It gives some options of how to contact your councillor. Our volunteers have been doing that for 2 months. So we are a call for more volunteers who would like to help educate our community and build community. We have seen a community building out of this in and of itself.
Beyond Allandale.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. One of the wards, I believe it was Ward 10, Councillor Hamilton's ward, the volunteers had a volunteer meeting and shared their ideas and thoughts and then began their canvassing of the neighborhood to educate others. Barrie's a big city. It's very hard with the way that news can travel these days. There are some limitations. So by visiting door to door, we're able to say, this has been proposed. Here's where we are with Marshall working on a report, and help the rest of Barrie learn about it and become more engaged in their community.
Everybody has ownership of the waterfront, and everyone has different opinions in terms of how the waterfront should be developed. And Cathy, your history here in Barrie, there have been developers and prying eyes on the waterfront before, going back to Jim Perry days with townhouses and condominiums. The Barrie Bay Cats floated the idea of a stadium. So the parcel of land has been looked at before. This isn't new.
That's right. And I'm sure it won't end here, to be honest. And that's one of the main concerns, as well as with the sports field, that there is going to be scope creep. So although initially, if it were to go there, they would need to look at down the road change rooms, washrooms, because the distance between the field where it would currently be placed to the South Shore Centre, the John Hayter South Shore Centre, is quite a distance for young folks and people that need a washroom. So that is going to happen. We know that, and that's also a part of why we're really focused on finding another spot that is beneficial to everybody. I mean, through the staff report, it spoke to what the user groups were looking for and what they wanted, and most did not say they wanted something on the waterfront, that they were looking for something like a sports complex, like that's out in Springwater. And my understanding, I think, is that they're looking at purchasing property in the south end of Barrie to build a sports complex. So, perhaps that's something that could be looked at.
And finally, Michele, we'll let you have that last word. And also, if people are looking to get engaged and involved, let them know where they can.
Absolutely. I think just in closing, it's not, the work of us as citizens isn't over when we achieve our goal of not having the sports field at the lakeshore. The work will be over when we get that land area protected as a natural habitat, so we don't go through this again. And we'd love to invite people to get involved. We have a website, which is friendsofallandelestationpark.com. We also have a Facebook group of the same name, Friends of Allandale Station Park, and you can actually go on there, and there's a list on the a notifications page where you can find out about volunteering. You can add your name to the petition on change.org. There is still a lot of time to be involved, and the work is not done.
Been hard for special needs kids to get into the game, but there's a new hockey league in Orillia changing that. Our Will Conkin gets the details from Ed Hunter, president and founder of the Orillia Eagles Special Needs Hockey Club.
This is a new chapter of Special Hockey International in Orillia. Tell me maybe just why and how it came to be.
There really isn't any club between Barrie and North Bay for Special Hockey International. And after serving 15 years in Innisfil, I thought it'd be beneficial for us to have a club closer. So an idea came about and talked about, and thought it'd be a great idea to start one up. And we will be starting in Rama at the Rama Mask this October.
How did you initially get started? Because you said you've been in there for 15 years with Innisfil. How did that initially start?
That started with me watching a news broadcast and listening to the news, not unlike yourself, and found out there was a place for kids and adults of all ages, boys or girls, to play special needs hockey as long as you had an intellectual disability, be it autism, Down syndrome, any kind of a disability that would separate you from mainstream hockey. When I heard word of that, I was excited because my son's on the spectrum, and I loved it, but it's time to bring a club north. We need clubs north.
And you said it starts in October. Do you need a certain amount of participants to get things going, or how many do you have at this moment?
Yeah, we have approximately 10 or 11 that have showed great interest in our club for October. We are looking for more players, again, of any age or skill level. We're going to have mentors on the ice, coaches on the ice, so if they need help skating, that's not an issue. We'll have skater aids as well. And again, any age. It's just a place to go have fun. We're going to be playing games with other cities and towns, wearing uniforms, the jerseys and socks that they see on TV, and their families wearing what have you. And it's now their time to have fun and shine.
I saw on a release that the club is not connected to a minor hockey association, so fundraising and donations are needed for ice time, equipment, and jerseys and such. Correct?
Exactly. Yes, we won't be affiliated with and quite a few of them are not, with a local minor hockey association. We'll be independently run, and we are looking for donations and sponsorships to cover such things as the ice time, the jerseys and socks as a grassroots starting up. That's the main ones right there, to pay for things such as that. And, and then we'll see how it goes in March, because that's when we will have our year-end tournament, in February, actually, not March.
Maybe connected with all this, why are programs like these important to give opportunities to play?
Oh, my God, it's a life skill. It's life-changing, and I mean that in its truest form. They do play hockey, for sure, but it's so much more. It's inclusiveness. It's fun. I have to say inclusiveness again. I mean, you see these players who maybe never even thought they could play like their brothers or sisters or cousins, and now they're playing and they're scoring the goal. Or better yet, they're helping someone else score that goal. And that is just the talk of the week. That's the talk of the week for them, at school or when friends come over that, hey, look what I did. It really does bring tears to your eyes to watch it. I've seen that firsthand with parents and coaches. When you see that person who's striving so hard to get down the ice and finally achieve his goal.
And again, where did you say games and practices will be held at?
We'll be having our practices and games. Our ice time will be at the Ramamask Arena on Saturdays between 8 and 10. So the first hour will be the junior division based on skill, and the second hour will be the intermediate division, again, based on skill level, not based on age. Just for safety and skill reasons. And then, so we'll practice, have our home games there. And as the schedule unfolds in September, October, we will be traveling to places of, could be Barrie, could be Newmarket, could be anywhere like that, to play other likewise teams.
How can people learn more about it or register?
Absolutely. We're going to be holding registration probably late August, early September. They can get a hold of me at my email address at edkhunter@yahoo.com. That's all lowercase. Or they can call me, 705-238. I could send them some information about SHI, Special Hockey International. It's been going strong in Canada for over 30 years, longer in the United States. It's all over Canada, U.S., and in Europe. Europe is growing tremendously as well. In Canada here, it's mostly in the Ontario region, but we also have teams at the East Coast, Nova Scotia and what have you, and all throughout the United States from east to west.
The Barrie Food Bank has been around for 40 years, a milestone they did not celebrate, but they did make note of. Karen Shue, the food bank's manager of fundraising and donor engagement, looking back at the food bank's beginning and a desire to go out of business with our Ian MacLennan.
So the Barrie Food Bank was founded July 25th, 1984. Was it supposed to be operating 40 years later?
Well, actually, no. When the Barrie Food Bank was founded in 1984, it was established as a temporary measure to what was thought to be a temporary situation at the time. But temporary measures shouldn't last 40 years. Kind of just like, income tax and HST were supposed to be temporary measures, and we still have those many years later. So sadly, we all know that this temporary situation has not gone away.
So what prompted the creation of the Barrie Food Bank? How did it become into being?
Well, the Barrie Food Bank was created in response to the increasing number of people seeking help from Barrie's downtown churches. Prior to 1984, each church had its own program, but some were able to give more than others, so it really wasn't an equitable solution. So local church leaders got together and they established a coalition to tie these individual networks together to create a community food center. And it was run out of the basement by volunteers. Its purpose was to centralize and coordinate food collection, consolidate food purchasing and fundraising, and really to provide an equitable distribution of food for anyone in the city. And so we're grateful for those founding members for what was originally called the Community Food Foundation of Barrie. And then in 2006, we changed the name simply to Barrie Food Bank.
And the executive director of the Barrie Food Bank, Sharon Palmer, made it very clear that you're not celebrating an anniversary because there's really nothing to celebrate in terms of the need, that the fact that you have to be there to provide for people. So this isn't a celebration. What would you call it then?
So no, we are not celebrating this anniversary. And the fact that Barrie Food Bank has existed for 4 decades is a reflection of the growing need in our society, a reflection of the growing imbalances in our society. Food insecurity continues to affect too many people in our city. For example, the Simcoe Muskoka Health Unit recently released their report that for 2023, 1 in 4, so that's 26% of Simcoe Muskoka households experienced some level of food insecurity in the previous 30 days. And so this is a significant increase from 1 in 16 or 16% just 4 years ago. And so, and food insecurity means that it means not having access to food because of financial difficulties. It could range from, running out of food before there's money to buy more. It could be the inability to afford a balanced diet, to going hungry, to missing meals, and then in extreme cases, not eating for whole days because of lack of food and money for food. So no, we're not celebrating the fact that we're still in operation after 40 years. But what we do want to celebrate and to recognize is the contribution of so many people who believe in our mission. I'm talking about our 215 volunteers, our staff, our board members, and then our individual donors, our business donors, legacy givers, foundations, and all the community groups and clubs. The past 40 years has been a reflection of how strong and committed and supportive the community of Barrie has been, and the fact that we have been able to keep that food bank going because of their generosity. So to you listeners, I say thank you. You're the ones who are making a difference in the lives of many every day.
And in terms of the clients then, what drove the food bank usage, if 40 years ago compared to where we are now in terms of who are the clients?
So in 1984, we have records that we found that show that we had about 1,300 visits every month. And so fast forward now through the ebbs and flows of the past 40 years, the Barrie Food Bank is now providing food on average to 6,000 to 7,000 people in our city each and every month. This has doubled from last year alone and has tripled since pre-pandemic levels. Ian, we're seeing more large families than ever before having troubles making ends meet. We're seeing more seniors. We're seeing newcomers to Canada struggling to afford food. But we're also seeing long-term residents who are using the food bank for the very first time. We're seeing those who rely on social assistance programs like Ontario Disability, Ontario Works, and Old Age Security. But the most troubling fact is 37% of our food bank users are children. We see new people at the food bank every day. Many of those who once saw themselves as middle class and saw the food bank as something that only poor people use now see themselves needing the food bank too.
That must be a big step to have to go to the door and say, I need help. I don't think it can be that easy, especially, there's that pride, but just to acknowledge that, I need support.
The stats are that 1 in 5 people who are food insecure and need the use of a food bank don't come to us. And that could be because of transportation issues or availability. But to your point, it's also the shame and the embarrassment of having to need a food bank. I think that they would rather, sell their possessions or beg money from their family members before coming to the food bank. So we know the people who are there have really overcome some obstacles just to come to use our services.
And so what sort of foods are provided, even compared to what maybe when things started out, and how challenging it is? Because at the end of the day, you get donations and support, but you have to purchase things too. And I imagine you're impacted by food inflation too as an organization. Just maybe combine that if you could for us.
So in 1984, so it's kind of going back 40 years, the main offering was a prepackaged hamper, and it contained donated canned goods and dry pantry items. And it would be the same every month. And so today, what's happened, 40 years later, food banking has changed. And so both the quantity and the quality of food has increased. Today, we operate what we call a self-shop model, which is called Marketplace. And this is where our clients push their shopping cart through the warehouse and make their own selections from each category based on their household size. And so they're making choices based on what do they already have at home, based on their dietary needs, or based on what they know and how to prepare and like to eat. And so this provides the dignity of choice and has also resulted in less food waste. And so, and really the quality of food, in particular, the amount of dairy and meat and fresh produce has also increased. And I want to give a shout out to our hardworking food recovery team that visits every single grocery store in Barrie up to 6 days a week to recover food that would have otherwise gone to waste.
What is necessary at a government level, do you think, to reduce the usage of food bank services? You touched upon ODSP and that, what is provided doesn't keep up with need in terms of, rent, let alone a meal on the table. Just curious what's needed.
Okay, so Ian, we're just going to do a little bit of math here. According to the Canadian Rent Report, a one-bedroom apartment in Barrie is $1,600 a month. But the maximum amount that a single individual on ODSP, so Ontario Disability Support, can receive is $1,308 a month. And the maximum amount of money on someone on Ontario Works is $733 a month. So listen, how does someone pay for rent and utilities and medicine and more within that income in a city like Barrie? So many people can't, leaving them to make difficult choices about what they pay for every month. And so, we're all experiencing inflation and high interest rates and youth unemployment and the high cost of living. And we all know it's getting harder and harder to keep up. So after 40 years of food banking, we know that food is not the solution. The root cause is poverty. And until we can take on what causes poverty, we can't solve food insecurity.
All levels of government need to jump in here?
Absolutely. Food banks exist because of systematic barriers that prevent individuals from accessing adequate income.
So food banks are now the new norm. Are they here to stay? They weren't supposed to.
The sobering reality is that we need a food bank in our city, and yet we shouldn't have a food bank in our city. And so, food banks can't do it alone, but we certainly can be part of the solution. And, the work that we do is critical. And we do dream of the day when we are no longer needed, when we can close down our warehouse at 42 Ann Street South for good. And actually, the best thing to happen to the Barrie Food Bank is to no longer be needed.
What Barrie's Talking About is a weekly podcast featuring the best Barrie and Simcoe County have to offer and more. You can get caught up and make it easy to keep up in the future by subscribing to What Barrie's Talking About through any podcast distributor. Still to come on What Barrie's Talking About, Brookstone Academy in Craighurst offering an alternative form of education, and the Barrie Library dips its oars in the water for another Dragon Boat Festival. Now this.
It's cool to care.
It's a well-known fact blood transfusion saves lives. It's also a well-known fact that the world relies on voluntary unpaid donations to fill the need for blood. The need for blood never ends. Canadian Blood Services in Barrie is calling on you to help save a life. Please consider donating today. Appointments are mandatory and must be booked in advance. Book today at blood.ca through the Give Blood app or by calling 1-888-2-DONATE.
Cool to Care is brought to you by the Peggy Hill team, keeping it real all the way to sold. Reach out now at peggyhill.com.
It's cool to care with 107.5 Cool FM.
This is What Barrie's Talking About from Barrie 360. I'm Dan Blakely. Brookstone Academy has moved into new digs in Craighurst, serving up an alternative to standard education. Shelley Long Bokma is the founder and principal. You started Brookstone in the middle of the pandemic?
Yeah, just at the start of the pandemic, 2021, July.
You are an adventurous one.
You could say that, yes.
How did this all come about? We know there
Yeah.
are private schools, and they were born out of parents looking for something they thought was going to be better than a traditional school system.
Sure.
So I
Yeah.
presume that's part of the basis for this, but I'm sure there's
Yes.
much more than that.
Yes, absolutely. So it did start out of that. I was actually a vice principal with the public school myself, with the public school board. And my own child was going through the public school system and having a bit of a hard time. She has since been diagnosed with some degree of neurodivergence, we're calling it these days. It basically just stands for, anything that means your brains are wired a little differently and you come at things a little differently. ADHD, ODD, ASD are some of the things that are the most common these days. But so I seeing her struggle coming through the system, myself also coming through a 20-year career, always kind of feeling the tug to want to be able to give more to a cohort of kids that just kind of floated along. They didn't set off enough warning bells to, garner a ton of support. They would just kind of float along and you could say fall through the cracks. Mm-hmm. And actually, we've said that a number of times that at Brookstone, we're sort of that net, the safety net that catches the kids that fall through the cracks. So I watching my own child go through that, and then myself, even as a VP, feeling like, I don't know that I'm going to be able to do what my heart really wants me to do within this system. As much as there's lots of amazing people in the system that are doing their best to try to meet the needs of all the students, it's tough to do in virtue of the fact that it is a system. And it's just not set up to personalize the way some kids need.
I was going to say, it's not that the system is doing necessarily a bad job.
Right.
Because there are certain constraints within that system.
Yep.
You, by virtue of your experience within that system, have been able to come out and throw a bunch of all new things together.
Yep.
And find a system that works better for a certain individual.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. It's a system that works for some and doesn't for others. And like you said, it's in virtue of the fact that it is a system. And so, I started with COVID. I ended up resigning my position with the board, knowing that I just needed to step back and rethink and figure out exactly, what my next step was going to be, as well as just be able to be there and be mom for my own kiddo that was struggling so much. And that's when I started looking around for something for her. And there are lots of other private schools out there. And even within the last couple of years since COVID, we've seen a ton pop up. Lots of outdoor education and alternative personalized environments. But I just couldn't find anything that was exactly what I would want my kid to have. So we started writing out sort of a wish list. What would the perfect school look like? What would it have? What would it feel like when you walk in the door? What would it sound like and feel like? And we set out to create it. And even in the beginning, we were like, okay, this is crazy. This is just like a dream, right? We're just going to do this thing, and then we're going to look at it and be like, wow, wouldn't it be great if that could exist? And then the more people, and then COVID started up, and more people were looking for those alternative environments. And the more people we talked to about it, the more they were kind of like, no, this is needed. Like, you should do this.
How many students do you have enrolled?
Currently, we are in the high 20s. Mm-hmm. We do have a combination of part-time and full-time students. Some students come from homeschooled environments and come to us just a few days a week. Other students, actually, we do have a few students doing a hybrid as well, where they attend public school a few days a week.
Oh, really?
And then come to us 1 or 2 days a week. Yep, that's been something that families have chosen to try as well.
How many could you accommodate?
So this is, with our recent move to the beautiful 200-year-old former church at Horseshoe Valley Road, 2101 Horseshoe Valley Road. We're right across from the Foodland, which is just off the 400. So really great location because we're still nestled within the countryside, but really close to all the major centers. Midland, Orillia, Barrie even is really not a far drive at all. When we started out in a very small community center that we rented from the township of Oro. And then we moved very quickly into double the size in the second year. COVID was still going on. Lots of people still wanted these quieter, more personalized environments. And so we were upwards of 50, almost 60 kids at that point. And then we realized afterwards, COVID was ending, and we were looking at, in terms of the core kind of kids that we service and that we support, really around 30 is a really good fit. So we ended up finding this amazing little building that is an older building, has the character and charm of an older building, but has been beautifully renovated inside. And perfectly for our purposes, because it's got little walls that break up the space for when we do need to split up into small groups, but the walls are glass. So we still see each other and we're still all kind of, co-mingling and existing together, but then we can split up when we need to as well.
Kindergarten to high school?
We are kindergarten, yeah, and we can say right up to high school now because we've got a few grade 9 inquiries and grade 10 as well, actually. They are hoping to be able to, we're hoping to be able to create some kind of support program where they are taking courses online and then they come to us a few days a week for support with their online courses. And as we get more interest, we may expand on that. But we'll see. We'll see.
How does that work relationship-wise and peer-wise? Because you've got small numbers, so you maybe have a couple in each grade level.
Yep.
Where a lot of kids are used to having 30 in a classroom.
Yeah.
What's that dynamic like?
Oh, it's beautiful.
Is it?
Honestly, it is a beautiful, beautiful thing. And it's funny because it's the one thing that going into this crazy adventure, I didn't have experience with. Because in the public school system, I was always with, as you said, it's 30 kids of the same age, the same grade going through. And now, mind you, I did have some experience with it because I was a special education teacher for a while. So I did special education amongst a couple of grades, but never a span like this. So this is the one part that we were kind of like, oh boy, yeah, this is going to be interesting. But we did lots of research, and there's lots of research to show that there's no reason why this shouldn't be successful. So yeah, we did it, and it works amazingly. There's definitely times when, like I said, we do need to split up so that each group of kids, but usually it's not by grade, it's by sort of more like division. So say K to 2s might be together, the 3 to 5s might be together, the 6 to 8s might be together. And that actually also changes on a day-to-day basis depending on what we're teaching. If we're doing, I love doing K to 8 right through when we're doing our STEM challenges and engineering challenges, and watching a kindergarten student instruct a grade 8 student in how to, well, what if we did it this way? Or what if we did it that way? And then the older students are just like, oh, yeah.
I was going to ask, do you see a lot of help coming from the older students down, but you're telling me it's the younger students up as well.
It really is. It really is. And yes, there's amazing leadership opportunities for the older kids. And the empathy that it brings out of them is such a beautiful thing as well, especially when they're going through that period in their lives, they're coming into puberty and, the angsty stuff is coming around. And so, having little kids around to bring out that empathy in them is very, very sweet. But yes, I've seen little or younger kids go up to bigger kids and say, you seem kind of sad. Like there was something that happened one day when there was a bit of drama between two friends. And, one of the younger kids went up and said, you seem kind of sad. Do you want to be my friend? And you can come with me. And I was just like, oh my God. And the older student just instantly came out of their funk. They were just like, oh, okay.
That's so great.
Right? It's just,
so great.
It's a beautiful thing. And because of that too, we are able to heavily support and even directly teach those social skills and social emotional coping skills as well, so that kids are getting a really nice balance between the development of their character as well as a precise academic program as well. So it's very nice, very nicely well-rounded.
Tell me about the difference you saw in your daughter making the transition from the system to what you're offering. Well,
the transition in her as well as just many, many of the kids. There's definitely some, how should I say, like common themes or common reactions that we see kids go through when they first arrive, depending on where they've come from. Generally, if they've arrived from the public system and they didn't have a positive experience there, they come in a state that they just need to be wrapped in love and support. And we do that. And we do that for the first little bit until they see that they're in a safe space, that they can be who they are, that they can have their feelings and speak their minds, and that it is a safe place to do that. And so we start to see I always say the light in their eyes and joy in their hearts. If they have light in their eyes and joy in their hearts, we're doing the right thing. And if the light starts dimming, then we need to check in. What's going on? How you doing? What's up today? And joy. Joy, when you walk in our building, you immediately feel the joy because kids are able to be who they are. We've had a lot of comments from families about how it has impacted their entire family system. Because anybody that has a child that's struggling knows that nothing else matters. And it's like everything just stops when your kid is not okay, right? And so, we've had stories of where the whole family system is now like thriving. It's not just the child, because their child wants to come to school and is excited to come to school and is learning to love learning again, because the way they learn has been appreciated.
Parents looking for more information can get that where? Absolutely.
The website has tons of info. So www.brookstoneacademy.ca, and if they just click around, there's lots of tabs and things they can click on to find out more info. There's also a place, a little pop-up will come up where they can sign up for newsletters and open houses and things like that, so they can stay in the know. And then every time we have new events coming up, we let them know.
Phone number if somebody wants to reach out to you?
Yeah, absolutely. 705-816-4580.
Shelley, thanks so much for dropping by by. Thanks for what you're offering to people who need it,
Yeah.
to students who need it.
Yeah.
And best of luck moving forward.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Always a fun event, always draws a huge crowd. The Barrie Library's annual Dragon Boat Festival coming up on August 17th. The library's Chris Vandercruz stopped in recently to talk about it with Brian Flannery and MJ from the Rock 95 Morning Crew.
The 20th anniversary of the Barrie Dragon Boat Festival is upon us. 20 years.
Yes, it's awesome to have 20 years of actually a festival like this.
Yeah. Looking forward to it. Now, MJ was just out the other day testing out the Dragon Boat, so I didn't know they're just in town and you can go test them out here and, have a little media day and have an experience.
Yeah, I had no idea. It would be so much fun. And I had no idea how it worked and how many people were involved, and it's a whole vibe.
How many people were on the boat that you went on?
Oh my gosh. How many is it normally? About 20?
20, yeah.
20? Yeah. And we filled up a good portion of
That's a lot of people working all together.
Yeah, well, I mean, you have to paddle in unison. So you're sort of creating that team effort right there.
Yeah, that's what MJ said. They learned not to flip.
Yeah.
That's the most important thing when you're out on the water, right?
Look at the person in front of you. Okay, got it.
Yeah, so tell us what happens on August 17th. How do you get involved if you want to participate and even if you just want to be a spectator?
So actually this year we have 36 teams, so it's sold out because Heritage Park is going through some construction this summer. And of course, we have opening ceremony with Tim Hortons, our presenting sponsor, at 7 a.m. And then races start at 7:45. And then, of course, you have each team actually gets to race 3 times, which doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're out there paddling, I'm sure you know that the idea is it's a lot of adrenaline used up within that 2 minutes you're out there.
Yeah, exactly. It's a race, so you're going full on paddling the entire time and quite hard, right?
This is not a leisurely stroll that they're doing. No, they're in it to win it.
Nice. And so what do you get if you win? What does the winning boat
it's more
receive?
or less the idea is you get to boast that you actually won the Barrie Dragon Boat Festival, especially the 20th anniversary.
Yeah, that's very cool. So if you want to participate, you can do so, and all the details are up on the library website, which is barrielibrary.ca for details. And then for the rest of us that are just going there to take it in, what's going to be prepared for the day?
There's going to be lots of different activities happening around the park, especially for kids. And then, of course, you can stand there on the shoreline, which is always beautiful to watch from, and watch the races. I mean, there's a lot of adrenaline you're going to see out there, and you can hear them yelling, screaming, or whatever.
And you hear that drum go boom, boom.
That's right. And
boom.
it's just, it's excitement of seeing who's going to be first.
Is there something that happens every year? Like, I know that MJ said when she went out, they didn't flip, but I have heard in the past that is something that definitely happens.
Definitely. And I mean, you got to remember that sometimes you have maybe 20 paddlers that have never paddled before and they're in a race boat and, you just get that wake or whatever and they don't know you can't necessarily just stop paddling.
Right.
If you stop paddling and you're going so fast, your boat goes down. And of course, and the waves could come in.
Yeah.
And then, so it's only happened twice in my time.
Keep paddling!
Yeah. So you always listen to your steersperson or whatever because they tell you,
keep going.
paddling.
Yeah, that's the motivation, and the one rule
So
is
two
don't
times
stop.
in my time, and I've been there for 20 years. So
Okay, well, we'll see if it happens on the 20th anniversary.
Yeah, that's right.
August 17th, the 20th anniversary of the Barrie Dragon Boat Festival, and all the details are up on barrielibrary.ca. Chris, thanks for stopping by.
thank you so much for having me.
And that's our program for this week. Thanks to Ian, Will, and the Rock 95 Morning Crew for their input, to Matt Ladder for his technical expertise, and to you for listening. If you like what you've heard, please subscribe to What Barrie's Talking About, rate it, review it. You can also keep up with What Barrie's Talking About on X at Barrie360, on our website, Barrie360.com, and there's our daily Kickstart podcast available from any streaming service and on our website. I'm Dan Blakely. Hope you'll join us again next week.